In the last lecture, we discovered that the home page takes a parameter that is called from, and we discovered that that parameter is vulnerable to an open redirect and to an XSS vulnerability. We can also see the next line in the code is identical to the previous line, and it also uses the same method that we spoke about, which is the get method for the URL params, but the value this time is type. So similar to the way that we concluded that this page takes a parameter that is called from based on the value that we have in here, we can also conclude the same, that this page also takes a parameter that is called type. Now, because the name in here is not very meaningful, we can just continue reading the code and see if it can give us any hints. Again, I'm assuming you know nothing about JavaScript, and I'm actually not a JavaScript developer myself. I just know a bit to get by. We're just going to read it step by step and see what we understand. So we can see that there is an if statement, and it's saying if the redirect URL, so that is what we set in the from, if it is set to null, then this code is going to be executed, which is nothing. Else, so that's our code, this is what we are executing because we are setting the from to a value. So in that case, it's going to check if the redirect type is 1. And the redirect type is defined in here, so its value is taken from the type parameter that we can set in here. So we know now if we set its value to 1, then this piece of code is going to be executed. So before we understand what this piece of code does, let's just go ahead, and we are already using the from and we're already putting something in the from. So let's just do test, but we're going to add an ampersand and we're going to set the type. And we're going to set it to 1 because we know from here, if we set it to 1, this piece of code will be executed. Now we don't know what this piece of code does, and therefore we're going to simply copy this code, window.location.href, and simply go to Google and look it up. And again, the first result is actually really good. You don't even need to click it to understand what it does. It's telling you the window.location.href returns the URL of the current page. So right here, this statement is trying to set the location of the current page. So this is really good because if we can manipulate this, we might be able to change the location of the current page and therefore get an open redirect. So right here, we're saying the location of the current page is equal to the get hash value of whatever value that we have in here. And again, assuming we don't know what this is, we're going to copy it and we're going to paste it in Google. And as you can see, we're not getting any good results. So I'm simply going to say JavaScript. And as you can see, again, the first result seems to be useful. And it seems like this is a common way of getting the value that comes after the hash sign. So based on this, I can make the educated guess that I can use this as a parameter, but instead of an ampersand, I'm going to have to put a hash before it, followed by this value, followed by the value that I want to send. So let me show you what I mean. We are setting the from to something, we're setting the type to 1, and we usually use the ampersand to add two parameters together. But this right here is not a parameter because as we saw earlier, this is the way to extract parameters from the request. But right here, this is not a way of extracting parameters. This gets you whatever value that is inputted after the hash. So we're going to put a hash and then we're going to put the value that we have in here, which is redir. And we're going to make that equal to a website because we already looked up what this does and we saw that this gets the location of the current page. So hopefully whatever website I'm gonna put after the redir after here is actually gonna be set to this value right here, and therefore the user will be redirected to that page. So let's go ahead and test that theory. We're gonna set it to https google.com. Gonna copy everything just to make sure, just so that I can modify it easier in the future. If I'm wrong, I'm gonna hit enter. And perfect, as you can see, I actually got redirected to Google, which means that we discovered an open redirect vulnerability in this page. And also, as we learned before, the fact that we see a href in here gives us a good hint that this value that is coming in here is being executed as a href link. And we know in the href, we can actually execute JavaScript by simply typing JavaScript followed by the code that we want to execute. And in our case, it's alert, let's say 4, hit enter. And perfect, as you can see, our code is getting executed on the page, which means that we discovered a reflected XSS vulnerability. So now we have 2 vulnerabilities discovered in this page, and both of these vulnerabilities are within elements that we would never see in normal usage of the page, and we were only able to see them by viewing hidden elements using this extension right here, and then analyzing the JavaScript code. And also a very important take-home lesson from this is that you should not worry about the code. Even if you don't know that programming language, you can always just follow it step by step and look up whatever functions or methods that you do not understand and learn that way. This is a very important trait that really good bug hunters have. A lot of the time they approach systems and code bases and applications and frameworks that they do not understand. So they might discover a hint that there is a bug, and then they discover that they don't really know how this system works or how this framework works. And they actually go ahead and learn about the framework and read the documentation and see if that can help them understand the target application. And then they go ahead and apply what they learned in order to discover their bugs and vulnerabilities. That's why a lot of bug hunters are referred to as researchers, because there is a lot of research involved when it comes to bug hunting.